All right, this podcast is brought to you by Blue Belt Contracting. These guys have sponsored a few podcasts. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring me. Thank you for supporting the podcast. So basically, if you're looking for any contracting work, it doesn't matter if it's interior, exterior, roof type things, any kind of contracting work, he is your main guy. Aaron is a great guy. I've known him for a while. His wife I've worked with many times with Pools and More. They're a great family. So if you need some kind of contracting work, look up Blue Belt Contracting. Thank you guys again for sponsoring it. Let's get this thing started. Welcome to another Paris, Texas, a podcast. This is a podcast where you get to listen to people's stories. People that have either influenced or lived in the city of Paris, Texas. I love hearing their stories, and I can't wait for you to hear the next guest. All right, so we're back, and this guest I'm excited for, which I'm excited for all my guests, but this one I have known for a while, and I look up to. I love his work. He is amazing. He's kind of an icon around Paris, Texas, in my book. I would say it's probably the same in a lot of people's book. He'll roll his eyes like he just did, but that's okay. Tony Corso, what's up?
Hello, Broadway.
So this is Tony's first time ever on a podcast ever.
When I was in high school, I did do a little 20-minute radio show in Germany a long time ago, but podcast, welcome to the 21st century.
There you go. So if someone was to know you at this exact stage of your life, where would they know you from?
As opposed to where geographically or just...
No, like if I were to say, oh, I know Tony, he does blank. Where...
Oh, gosh. I'm on my third career here in Paris. Some would know me as a school teacher, a former school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Others would know me as a pastor when I pastored years ago. And I take a lot of pictures, and so...
So currently, most people are going to say, I know Tony, he takes pictures of everything.
I take a lot of pictures of everything, I do.
Awesome. So Tony, where were you born?
I was born in California. My dad was in the Army.
Really?
And so I'm an Army brat. He... dropped me off there and with my mom. Then he went to Korea for a year. So I lived at Fort Ord, just outside of Monterey, my first year of life, and lived everywhere in between and ended up graduating in high school over in Frankfurt, Germany. It was West Germany at the time.
Really?
So I've traveled.
A lot I see.
Lived in Italy, Arizona, Illinois, South Carolina, Texas, multiple places.
So I normally ask, what was your thing that you did in like school? Like, did you play football?
I did the football in the earlier years and didn't see a future in that. And so I finished out playing golf my last 3 years of high school. But I was really big into theater.
Theater, really?
And also did a lot of photography. I learned to develop black and white pictures when I was in 7th grade. And so I lived in the darkroom all through my junior high and high school years. And when I wasn't developing pictures, I was doing plays on stage.
And so as you transition through different schools, did they have those accessible in all those schools?
Fortunately for me, being raised in the military, they have these facilities on the bases. They were called Arts and Crafts Centers.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just one of the perks of being in the military, I guess, and for the dependents. But, they had there was a center where you could go if you were into woodwork. They had all the table saws and things. If you were into ceramics, pottery, jewelry making, and they had a dark room, and so that's where
you learned.
Yeah, I didn't have to pay anything for it, just
Wow.
bought my photo paper, and so
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think we talked about this before, but that was your first introduction to photography was 7th grade?
7th grade, yeah, a little elective class, and saw that print magically appear in a tray of developer, and I was hooked.
You fell in love.
Did, yeah.
Awesome. So you graduated in Germany.
Graduated in Germany in 1978, and that's where I met this girl. She was a senior, I was a junior. That was my wife. Well, that's who I'm married to. We met in high school.
In Germany?
In Germany. In fact, yeah, it's a great story. She was, I used to do a lot of community theater. I had never done anything in the high schools. It was just community theater I was involved with, and it was the spring of 77, early spring, right after the first of the year, and the drama teacher cornered me down, and he had seen some of my stuff in the community theater and wanted to know why I never did high school stuff. I said, I don't know, just always got involved with community theater. And he says, well, we're doing our spring musical. We had somebody drop out. He said, would you be willing to come in? It's not a big part if you can handle that. And I'm like, I'm fine, whatever. Sure, I'll be glad to. Which was good because the guy that dropped out, his partner was Kathy.
Oh.
And so I had walked in that day. She was a senior, I was a junior, and the play musical was called The Boyfriend, and I was her boyfriend, and then so that's how we met.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Tell me that's fate,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you played her boyfriend, and did y'all start dating right after?
Pretty much. I think she asked me out first time someone encouraged her, so we went out. We started dating, and then she graduated because she was a year ahead of me, and then came back to the States, and I had another year to go in Germany, and so we kept in touch, and then somehow ended up out in Arizona 2 years later, and back in the same town I was going to school out in Arizona State, and she came out there and picked it up from where we left off.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So.
Okay, so you're back in Arizona. What was the plan when you graduated? What was your thought?
I was just, I came back to the States. I think at that time I had my eyes of being an actor. I wanted to go into showbiz and thought that would be the thing, and came back to Arizona State, went to school, but I was actually majoring in radio and television broadcasting, and did some plays there, got on the newspaper as a photographer. So just kept a full plate. And then after that, my parents came back to South Carolina. They were going to be stationed there, and they wanted me to come live there with them and go to school at University of South Carolina. And I had that taste of freedom, and I was like, oh gosh, I just don't know. So I was kind of in a quandary. I went back for the summer, and then just had this epiphany that I did not really think that going into show business and theater was what I was wanting, or was what I was supposed to do, because I was getting ready to go to apply for the School of Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York, and had all the paperwork, and I said, this is not what I want to do. This is not going to fulfill me. And so I told Mom and Dad, I said, I'm going to move back to Arizona. I'm going to work for a while and figure it out. And so I went back to Arizona, loaded up. Buddy and I got an apartment, and went to work in it was like a steel mill, but it was an aluminum extrusion plant. And it was a factory rat, working 6 days a week, 4 to 12, Tuesdays off, no social life.
Oh, that sounds miserable.
Yeah, I had myself a motorcycle, wore my little do-rag, and it was just kind of an interesting 18 months, but had a pretty neat experience there, and turned my life around. Good.
So you worked there for 18 months. What happened next?
Well, the foreman that worked with me, he was an ex-military guy, an ex-motorcycle guy, and he would talk to me a lot. And we thought that the plant, there was going to be a shutdown or an extended strike of some sorts. And I was telling him, I said, yeah, I've got my motorcycle, all my gear. I'm going to go head up in the mountains and just find myself. And he could tell I was lost as a goose. And so he said, well, and I told him, I said, yeah, I'm going to take some philosophy books and maybe take a Bible along. And I was raised as a Catholic. I grew up and I had all the form down, but, there was just nothing there that was genuine in my own spiritual life. And so he said, well, when you open up that Bible, he said, you should just pray and ask the Holy Spirit. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So I was ripe for the picking, and he just reeled me in. And, it's one thing if you grow up believing in Jesus, but it's another thing to find out that you can know him. And that was a game changer for me. And here I was 19, lost as a goose, factory rat, pothead, and just didn't have any idea which way was up, and knew that there was still something out there. And so I just, I just thought, wow, this makes sense, if God's there and he has a plan, I'll follow him. And
right.
So, and I had a real dramatic conversion. It was life-changing, 180 degree, and left a lot of friends' heads spinning. None to say was Kathy's. And then not long after that, she had a conversion, and so off to Bible college I was going.
Oh, yay. So you didn't go to the mountains, you went to Bible college.
I went to Bible college in San Antonio, yeah.
There you go. That's awesome. Were y'all still dating?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, what happened was we were dating, and then all of a sudden I'm having this dramatic conversion experience and cleaning up my life. And she's like, "What's happened to you?" And I'm like, this is it. And
This is the new me.
so I just started going to different churches and reading my Bible, and she was trying to tag along, but man, we were all water and oil. And at this point, then I knew that's what I wanted. I just wanted to go serve God. If that meant moving off to India and living in a jungle, I was ready to go.
There you go.
And so, but she wasn't ready to buy into that, and for obvious reasons. And so I basically had a Abraham Isaac mountain experience at the church altar one day, and I just said, God, I just need to turn it over to you and follow you, and this is what I need to do without anyone else. That's fine, but if you want to change her life around, that would be great. I'd like to do this journey with her, but if not, you're the one that I got to follow. And the minute I did that, I felt his hand on my shoulder, and there she was, knelt down, was in tears, had come up from the back of the church.
Well, that's amazing.
And said, something's brought me up here and I'm ready, and boom, so off we went.
So she came with you to Bible school.
Yeah, I went to San Antonio. Yeah, she was working, and I was kind of doing part-time work, going to school, and then we got plugged into a church down there and got involved with ministry for 7 or 8 years, doing a lot of prison stuff, and then
in San Antonio. Awesome.
Yeah, all 3 of our girls were born down there.
Awesome.
And then had an opportunity. A pastor in San Antonio had ties up here in Northeast Texas, and next thing I know, I'm like the Beverly Hillbillies, except instead of coming from the country to the big city,
big city coming to the country.
I loaded up the truck and went to the country, and so pastored for 17 years up here.
In Paris?
Outside of Paris.
Outside of Paris.
Yeah, south of Pattonville.
So what was your thought when you came to these parts? Like, what was your first impression?
We thought that we had, because, both of us were military brats, we thought we had been exposed to multiple cultures. And it was different up here in Northeast Texas.
It's its own culture.
It's its own culture, and so had some. It was good though. I was ready for the country life, and
that's awesome.
So we were pastoring one church for 2 years, and then things changed. And next thing you know, we pioneered a new work and restored an old church building, and life just took off. It was a busy 15, 17 years. I found myself. We have. Growing family, growing needs, finished up my teaching certification so I could get a job teaching also. So I was bivocational. Once I finished up and started teaching also in the public schools, and then Kathy went back to school and got her nursing degree. So it was a busy time, 3 kids, church full-time, school full-time. And then I kind of hit a wall and I just hit a wall, and it was time to step down. And, somebody had said years ago, they said, that Jesus spent the first 30 years of his life preparing for 3 years of ministry. And then we got smart and thought we could take a guy in 3 years and prepare him to minister for 30 years. But it was a good experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was, but I just knew it was time. And so I stepped down. The church is still going today,
Yay.
Which blesses me, especially when you're a small independent out there kind of thing. Sometimes those things have a way of folding and collapsing, but the church is still going, doing well today. And so I taught, drove a school bus, and then when our youngest daughter graduated in 2006, I somehow waded back into photography at the nudging of a father-in-law, and just thought it would just be something to piddle around with. And if you had told me 13 years ago what I'd be doing today, I'd have never believed you.
That's awesome. Now, which daughter is it that I have the weird connection with?
My oldest, Lisa.
The oldest.
Yeah, because
okay.
she was up at in New Life in Colorado Springs, where you were there.
Yep.
And she was going through the School of Worship up there, and so we'd been up a few times to see her.
And it's a weird thing because I was there for 24/7, which is another different program. It's same church though, big church. And it's just weird, small town, weird connection, but for a connection that's so far away.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then I just met with Brandon the other day and found out his ties there. So, small world.
Small world. All right, so you started in 2006, you started to get back in photography?
Yeah.
But you're still teaching at this time, right?
Yeah, I was still teaching.
What did you teach?
I was junior high reading and English teacher.
Reading and English?
Yeah.
And you did that the whole time, or did you kind of jump around?
Well, I actually was a reading teacher, and at the school that I taught, they had it. a lot of schools, they combine it, language arts. But where I was at, someone taught reading, others taught English. And I had the reading, so that opened up a lot of neat doors for me to share different novels, literature, which I enjoyed. And in fact, I got to introduce my 7th graders to the whole subject of the Holocaust. And I did a novel with them every year, and I started taking the kids down to the museum in Dallas, the Holocaust Museum. And I was doing my I'd started doing my photography about this. Well, I know I was doing it because I would take this. It was an annual field trip to the museum. But the kids got to listen to living survivors, Holocaust survivors, come in and share their stories. And it was always just riveting. And I just remember one year just mentioning to the museum director, I said, hey, you probably got plenty of photographers here in Dallas. I said, but gosh, I love these survivors and I love doing this and coming in. And, I take pictures. Here's my website. If you ever need anybody, I'd be happy to come in. And well, that, long story short, opened up a door, and I got to spend 6 months with 13 different living Holocaust survivors in the Dallas area, going in, hearing their stories, photographing them, taking pictures of them and their families. And it led to a pretty neat photo exhibit at the museum downtown Dallas.
That's
and
awesome.
But it was just an incredible experience, which, gosh, when I picked up a camera and just started taking pictures of the cows at back in the local football games, I never thought I would ever be able to do something like that. And but it was really very rewarding.
That's amazing. I didn't know that about you. That's really cool. Question: well, do you remember what your first camera you bought in this stage of life was?
When I first started photography?
In
the digital age?
As an adult.
As an adult. Canon 30D.
Canon 30D.
Yeah, when my father-in-law came back for Carolyn's graduation, the kids had these little point and shoots. I was an old film guy. So the digital thing, to me, was like voodoo. I was like, what is this? This is just, I just can't wrap my head around this stuff. And so we had gotten the kids little point and shoots, and I was just amazed that, the clarity and what they could do. And so when my father-in-law came back, he had bought that new Canon 5D, the 5D Classic now is what they call it. And he was like, oh, you need one of these. And I mean, I didn't even know what to do with it. It was just humongous. And so when Carolyn graduated, I thought, well, I don't know. I might just piddle around with this. And so I worked in a fireworks stand for like 2 or 3 weeks for a friend. And I thought, well, I'll just use this for
a new camera.
Yeah. And picked it up and basically just had to reteach myself all over again. I've had no formal training in photography, no formal education, just picked it up and just started messing with it and going on YouTube. That's the beauty of the internet now. You can figure out a lot of things and so it's Canon 30D, then I just piddling.
That's awesome.
Then somebody asked me, it was actually a friend back in Colorado Springs, it was their daughter was getting married. They'd seen some of my pictures, wanted to know if I'd do a wedding. And I was like, well, I'd never shot a wedding before. So I said, well, I'll just do it for free so I can have it for, portfolio. But then it was like, well, I got to have more than one camera. If I'm going to shoot a wedding, you can't just show up with one camera. So bought another 30D. How it goes.
That's
tell the
awesome.
wife, tax write-off, I need this.
Yeah. I don't have more than one camera. That's a lie. I have a bunch of cameras.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you got into it. So did you ever teach it in school?
No. Oh, no.
No?
I just
did it on the side hustle?
Yeah. And then what I started doing was, when I started shooting, this was kind of like just prior to Facebook. I wasn't on Facebook yet. And a friend of mine helped me set up a little web page because, that's what I was seeing. Digital photographers had websites to post your stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. It beats carrying the little flip albums from Walmart you got when you had prints. And so, and it was a crude website when I look back on that. And so, I just start taking pictures of games and stuff like that and posting them, and people start asking questions about, well, how do you do this and how do you do that and what settings do you use? And I realized, because I've been teaching a lot of classes over the years, but it's not a photography course. It's just a basic 3-hour class. What I found was a lot of people, well, first of all, let me back up. The digital age opened up photography to a lot more people because they didn't have to fool with developing darkroom chemicals and all that stuff. So they'd go out with their little point and shoots and thought, wow, this is kind of fun. I can put it on my computer and do these neat things. Then the phones got really impressive, so they'd go out and buy, the nice phones taking cool pictures. And then they thought, okay, I'm ready to up my game. So they'd go out and buy a DSLR, starter Nikon or Canon. And then they realized, well, I have no idea what these buttons are. I don't know what all these settings. So they just shoot it in auto, and then basically have an expensive point and shoot camera.
Right.
So it wasn't like, you can just tell somebody in 2 minutes what settings to use.
Right.
You realize there's some basic fundamental operations of the camera: aperture, ISO, shutter speed. How do they all work together? Basic things. And so I just started teaching these classes, and that's about all I teach.
Just basic,
just random. I'll get people, when are you going to do another class? And I haven't done one in a while. But I used to teach them out of my classroom at school after hours. So
that's awesome. So do you still do developing photos? Like,
no, gosh, I could never go back to that. No, I always get tickled when I run into those diehards. They think they're purist, and I always tell them, if you're a purist, you draw it by hand.
Now, but you have a couple of, or at least one, I know I've seen you in photos with it, an older camera.
Rolleiflex.
Yes.
Yeah, that's just a paperweight.
Fun. Do you use it? I've seen you take pictures with it, right? Don't you?
No, I think one time Ron went out and bought one, so we just posed real quick holding up our Rolleiflexes. I think he dabbled with it.
Okay.
I think I have an old roll of 120 film stashed away somewhere, but
so you haven't taken it out to?
No, because then where am I going to develop it? Nobody even does that anymore, and so.
I'm sure if you looked back in the vaults, you could figure it out.
I don't know. The digital's too clean and easy. I could never go back. That's old school. Maybe that I should shame myself, and I'm not a true photographer, but
no,
I enjoyed smelling like Fixer and Stop Bath for years, but those days are behind me.
Awesome. All right, so I know you eventually retired from school.
I did. I found out. Let's see. What year is this now? 2019, 2015, I guess it was. Yeah, with the teaching, they have this magic number. If your number of years taught and your age hits 80, you're eligible to retire. And I started late, actually, teaching. I was like my early 30s, mid-30s before I even started in the classroom. And I had driven a school bus for 5 years when I first moved up here, so that kind of helped in my years of service. But I didn't think I would ever retire. And then sat down with a good friend who was a financial advisor, and he kind of opened my eyes to some things and said, you'd be silly not to. And by this time, I was already pretty well maxed out. I had 2 careers going. I was teaching full-time, and I'm doing school photography and weddings and families and sports teams, and which was fine because, the kids are grown, they're gone. And so it just made sense for me at this time. It was a perfect time to transition. So I retired, not because I loved what I did. I loved teaching, but it just was a good move for me at that time to just continue doing what I had been doing, except on a larger scale. And there's always that nervousness of stepping out, and oh my gosh, and should I do it now? And is this going to, will there be business there? But God is blessed. I've been very busy. My biggest concern was, am I going to be so caught up taking every little job that I'm going to stop taking pictures of the things that I enjoy? And I'm still shooting football games, and every time a cloud pops up, I'm out the door shooting and chasing storms, which I love. And
that's what I love about what you do is, like, you do a lot of professional work, obviously, but you also find time to still do the hobby passion photography, like things that you're not getting paid to do. You're just going out to do it because it's fun.
That's what keeps the juices flowing. I love photography.
Yeah.
The fact that I get paid for doing it, and I've gotten extremely busy. This year was my busiest year doing school photography. School photography, that was the last thing on my radar. And that's another whole story how that evolved. But I've picked up, I'm doing 2 entire school districts and doing 4 or 5 campuses in Paris ISD. And I'm just a one-man show,
Yeah.
And so it's taught me to be a little bit more organized.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that, I don't enjoy doing school photography. I enjoy it. It keeps me around the kids. I have a blast when I go in there. I cut up with them, do pictures, it's paying bills, and but it's tedious. It's cookie cutter work. It's just one after another, and so I can work all day taking pictures of 1,000 kids, But I guarantee you, if I go home and there's a cloud that pops up, I'm going to be out the door or go shoot a game, because that's what really just keeps my motor going.
That's awesome. I find it hard sometimes. I'll be home and I'll be tired because it's been a long day, and
you have kids,
and I have little kids.
Yeah,
and I'll hear that lightning or thunder in the background, and I kid you not, there's been a plethora of times that I bet Tony's out getting some amazing photo right now. And sure enough, an hour later, Kimmy will pull up my wife will pull up her phone and be like, "Yep, he went out," and you'll have posted some amazing shot. And I'm like, man, I wish I'd get out and just go. And I struggle with that.
Well, like I said, this is my empty nest thing. All my kids are gone, and I used to get real busy shooting these football games, and then you can go shoot a game, and I've told people, I said, for every hour I spend shooting, I'll spend at least another hour and a half or so editing.
Mm-hmm.
And Kathy works, she's a labor and delivery nurse manager at Baylor Scott and White downtown in Dallas. And so, she's gone multiple days during the week, and then I'm going into Dallas all the time, and we have a kind of a crazy life schedule right now, but it's working for us. But, when she's not there, she knows what I'm doing. I'm either out taking pictures or I'm in front of the computer editing. And so, but I've seen young people kind of get into this and want to do this stuff. And I know they've got kids at home, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I could not have done this.
Yeah.
I mean, you got kids, you have a responsibility. And
yeah, it's tough.
This just keeps me off the TV and out of trouble.
Thanks. Let's talk about your drone. So I'm pretty sure I was around when you got your first drone.
Okay.
Because a fond memory I have of you is you came up to church to show off your new drone.
That was before I learned how to calibrate over steel.
So you'd only had it, I think you had it for like a month or maybe less. I'm not sure.
I remember that. Yeah, that was awkward.
I'm telling the story. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
You came, you brought it up, and I was excited too because I'd never seen one in person. I'd only seen them online or on YouTube or something like that. And at that stage in my life, I was doing creative stuff, but I wasn't doing what I'm doing now. So I find stuff like that super fascinating, and I was always drawn to it. So I agree, calibrating your drone was more difficult then, but it's still difficult now, and you got to do this right dance.
Yeah.
And it's
a calibration dance.
Yeah, it's a dance for sure. But it was still fresh to you, and you just set it up, you set it down, you take it off
the back of my truck bed.
Off the back of your truck bed.
Not a good idea.
Well, now I fly mine off the top of my car. I do it all
really?
the time, and I landed on my car.
Well, I had that was an earlier version. They've improved the technology.
But I agree, it was much more difficult back then than it is now. And it got squirrely. I don't know.
That would be a kind term.
And it flew straight for me.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I ducked, and then it hit a window, and then it went skittering
and then
down.
Flipped, and the camera popped off, and the blades were in pieces. And I just remember thinking, well, that was very embarrassing.
Oh, yeah. Well, and also you had a big gig that you needed your drone for. Like, it was either the next day or a couple days away.
Yeah.
And I think you ended up driving to Dallas to go get the replacement part because you had to get a new gimbal, right?
Yeah, it was.
Or something like that.
Yeah, that's been a few days since then. Yeah, that was. I just have never been real good about reading the manuals. I like to just figure it. It's a guy thing, I think.
I don't think anybody reads manuals. I don't think anybody does that.
Oh my gosh, the print's too small anyway. So, but yeah, that was a good learning experience. And the funny thing is, when it comes to technology, I'm just not one of these guys that has to have the newest thing out there. There's a lot of gearheads, and what do they call them? But, somebody can go buy a camera, and then, the company will announce 3 weeks later they're releasing a new one, and they're selling the one they've only had for 3 weeks so they can buy the new one. My wife has had to drag me into the 21st century. I had kind of heard about drones. I was doing an event over at the Harley Chili Cook-Off deal one year because I would go out and take pictures for him, and there was a guy videoing, and he had a drone. I think it was the Phantom 1 version with the GoPro setup.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, but what would I do with that? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a video guy, never will be. I dabble with it, but so it was Labor Day, gosh, I want to say 5-6 years ago now. We didn't have school that day, and we were watching the Today Show, and they were doing one of those what's trending things, and Kathy and I were drinking coffee, and they showed this clip of a guy who was out on his lake home, and he's flying this drone, it's videoing, and you can see his cabin, the kids are playing on the dock, and there's grass. And this guy's like getting his keys out, wallet and phone, and he's running out in his clothes into the water, and he catches the drone that was losing power. And he's catching it
I've
just
seen that
before it hits. So, well, there's a newer one that's out.
Yeah.
That's everyone's been posting and then tagging me in it. But Kathy's comment was, wow, that was pretty cool. How come you don't have one of those? And I'm like, well, I'll look into that. And so I looked into it, researched a little bit, got one, and then it showed up, and I mean, it sat there on the table for about 2 weeks. I was afraid to open up because it involved reading a manual. I didn't.
Pretty much to open it.
yeah, just to get it set up. So anyway, so I guess that was kind of a game changer. And, I mean, I could just go out and post a little picture or video clip of me standing in my yard, and people were just amazed because it was just the vantage point that it gave you. It was just fascinating, and I think they were new, and I think
very new to Paris area.
Yeah, I think I was the first one in the county to have one, and then then we had the floods that year, and I did a clip out there at the Red River where it was all flooded and it shut down 271, and man, people just went crazy over that. And then there was the infamous Pat Mays Lake story that I found out from the government that was not really encouraged.
Not encouraged.
Story for another day.
Strongly discouraged.
Yeah, the more you know.
Well, you've even gotten a little bit. You've got some news repost and news channels have posted some of your photos on their live broadcasts.
I've been sending pictures in to Pete Delkus on Channel 8 for years, just weather shots. Just send them in, he'd air them, and so it always kind of put Paris on the map. That was kind of hey, Paris, Texas, and so pictures, storm shots, weather shots, and so and I remember my first drone picture I sent to him. I took a picture of a sunset over the Red River Carnival here we have. I said, Pete, check out my new toy, and he just loved the drone stuff. So then I sent that clip to him. I just sent the link off my Facebook page. I wasn't thinking he would show a video clip that night, but it was just of the spillway at Pat Mays Lake. And sure enough, that night he airs like 90 seconds on his broadcast. Hey, look at this drone video of from up in Paris. Tony sent this to me, and it's showing the lake and being all full. And so I was like, oh, that was fun. And a week later, a certified letter from the Army Engineer Corps out of Tulsa. Cease and desist flying an unmanned aircraft over Engineer Corps. Punishable 6 months in prison, $5,000 fine.
Oh, no.
We don't think that you knew about this law and don't think your intent was malicious, but we're asking you to remove it from your Facebook page. We also know that it aired on WFAA in Dallas. And I'm like, whoa. So
wow, intense.
Yeah, so that 6 months after that, I'd still break into a cold sweat when black Suburbans would drive by. So, but it was fun.
Oh, that's funny. Now you've also had a lot of pretty big websites, because you do astrophotography as well.
I never even knew that was a term until I sent in a picture of a passing meteor to space.com, and they posted it on their page.
Right.
Astrophotographer Tony Corso. I was like, I didn't even know that was a word, but I kind of like the ring to it.
Yeah.
I'd tell Kathy, you're married to an astrophotographer.
Right.
I still don't know what that is, but, like I said, I love taking pictures of anything, whether it's a sunrise, sunset, rising moon, sunrises, storms, but the star thing was pretty cool. And once you figure out how to do that, then meteors, capturing meteors. And so, I'm always paying attention when the meteor showers are in. And so I had, what was it? There was a bunch of us that went out one night to the Red River during the Perseid meteor shower. And I got one of a meteor over there. What is that, railroad thing down there? I was down at the bottom.
Bridge.
And I submitted that, and I think they posted or whatever on their page. And then about 6 months later, someone brought to my attention, there was some deal, 100 best space pictures of 2018 or whatever, and I was like, oh, those would be cool. I'm flipping through, and I'm like, oh, that looks like, oh, that is mine. So, it's nice that
someone
made that.
noticed it. Yeah,
I didn't even get a diploma for that or something.
Oh man!
But it was, it is what it is. People, they say, oh, you should enter this in a photo contest or whatever. And it's like, I'm just not into photo contests. I mean, I respect people that do that. That's great for kids in school and get their stuff. But it's art. How do you compare art? I don't do photo contests.
Astrophotography is one of my favorite. Like, if I was retired, I think it's one that I would spend a lot of time going out and figuring out more about it.
Yeah.
I really like that one. And
Yeah, I'd like to take a group down to Fort Davis.
We've talked
this
about
summer.
this.
Yeah, you have to kind of plan it. I mean, it's a grueling drive.
What'd you say it was like?
About 9 hours.
9
yeah.
hours, yeah.
And you go down there to the Davis Mountains where the McDonald Observatory is, and it is they are the darkest skies in North America. I mean, that is given.
That's awesome.
And if you go down there, and I've been down there 3 times now, and you set up, and it's just amazing, the skies, just to see the Milky Way and the skies. But then to get in on a meteor shower, that's really fun to do. And but you don't want to do it when there's going to be a moon.
Right.
Because
it's strategic.
you plan a lot.
There's a lot of strategy to doing it.
Yeah, there is.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to plan it, but I'm down.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, so you're just doing the photo thing, just still plugging away?
Yeah, it's been a good season for us. It's been a fast decade. I'll be 60 next month, or January. Yeah, turn 60, and so. Every decade of my life, it seems like, has had a very defined chapter. And I would not be surprised I'm not planning anything, but I'm kind of thinking, wow, who knows what lies ahead. I believe, God, the Bible says that God directs our steps, Now I've taken steps that I'm not going to blame God for over the years. But,
right.
And I don't know. The photography thing has opened up just a lot of neat doors to bless people in a lot of ways. I mean, I get a lot of nice feedback from parents. I go shoot a football game because I enjoy it, not because I'm looking to make a buck.
So they're not paying you for I know this because we've done this. Normally, when you go into football games or city events, like you're just for fun. Now, if they want to reach out to you and get a print, they can.
Yeah, well, I post them on my page. I put my little logo in the corner, and I tell, look, I don't have time to, I'm not interested in selling off 4x5s, prints here and there. I said, if you want to download it, go get yourself a little print made. That's fine, or share it. I don't care. If they want to get posters or larger prints, I'm always happy to sell that. But I just do it. It's kind of like if you were into baking, you bake cookies. You're not just got to sit there and eat them all yourself. You take them to work, share them, whatever, but I've gotten just a lot of nice feedback over the years from people that just genuinely appreciate it. And, and then it's led, I mean, I didn't get into business because of some grand marketing scheme or plan on my own. I just stumbled into it because posting those pictures and, have fun, enjoy it. Oh, do you do family pictures? Well, sure, why not? And so that's what led me to getting into business. Do you do weddings? Sure, why not? Senior portraits? Sure. The only ones I try to avoid are the infant shoots. That's a beast that you have to just hand off to people that
right.
more, yeah. And so it turned out to be a great marketing thing. Of course, in the age of Facebook, I mean, I tell people if it wasn't for Facebook, I'd still be teaching.
Right.
Literally. I mean, because the business built up because people just started seeing the work and calling. And then one thing led to another. You get a drone. Oh, can you do this? Well, sure. Why not? And I mean, it's been an interesting education, but as far as running a business, because I've never had a business before, but I get out and shoot things that I enjoy and enjoy the work that I do and the people that I've had an opportunity to work with. So
it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome. What a great story.
Yeah, I don't try to, I don't try to spiritualize it in any way and say God's called me to take pictures. I think there's probably greater things on God's mind. But I do think we're called to be a blessing to people. The Holocaust thing was a really interesting experience for me, and I've developed a long-time friendship with one of the survivors, and we still keep in touch all the time.
That's awesome.
I also got involved with that organization out of Colorado a few years ago. Now I lay me down to sleep, where Kathy encouraged me with her labor and delivery background. Over the years, unfortunately, sometimes women that are pregnant don't carry full term. And the hospital will call me and I'll come up and do, a lot of times they'll deliver, maybe the hospital takes a couple of quick snapshots. The mother's medicated, in shock, the baby's gone, and they have nothing to remember. And so I'll go in when they call me at different hours and go in and try and do some really nice portraits with the family. And again, the appreciation that the family.
And you donate that, right?
Oh yeah. I'm not there to charge or anything like that, And so it's just an opportunity to bless them, and it's just amazing how pictures can evoke certain emotions and things with people. I had an opportunity here just this week, and you may not have even seen the picture, but I had somebody contact me, and I thought we were doing a family session out in a cotton field. When I got there, the girl that had called me said, well, my husband's running late from work, my dad's out in the fields, and mom's not here, so it's just going to be me and my two grandparents. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure, I'm game. Let's go do it. And but you could just tell she had such an affection for her grandparents, and they were up in years. And we got out there. We did some pictures around some cows, a tractor, and we got out there. And the granddad was 91, and you could just tell he had a few miles on him. He was a little weathered. And,
at 91, I'd hope.
Yeah, and so I said, I want to get a picture of a cotton boll in his hand, and just get that. And I got the shot. Well, then his wife said, oh, have you ever picked cotton? And I'm like, not for a living. And so she starts pulling out the cotton out of the bowl.
I've seen this picture.
And so I got a picture of the hand. I just posted it the other day, and I posted it on that Backroads of Texas page. And I kid you not. I mean, I'm not out there trying to see how many likes I can get or whatever like that. No. But you just gauge what's striking a nerve with people. Well, I mean, I've posted pictures before, and it gotten a lot of attention, weather shot or something like this. And on that Backroads of Texas, I mean, I finally had to turn the browser off because it was like going crazy. But it was just these two weathered hands in a cotton boll, and you could tell those hands were gnarled and just. And I mean, there was like I was looking at it the other day. It had over 8,000 likes. There was like over 700 comments, but the comments that the people were, so many people said the picture had moved them to tears. And it reminded them of their parents or their grandparents or stories. I just was just amazed how it just resonated with people.
Yep.
And I don't go out with an agenda. I just go out and capture life. And then when I'm editing, I'm just like, oh, I like this one. I'm going to share it. And then you just never know what it's going to do and how it's just going to touch somebody. And I don't know. I just think it's kind of cool.
Just very authentic is what I would say about you. You're just authentic, and it just comes natural.
Well,
you're not trying to pull one over on anyone.
I'm getting old. I have nothing to.
You ain't got time for that.
I don't have time for that anymore.
So one more question.
All right.
So when are the brothers coming back for a photo?
Oh, the quads. I try to do one every summer with them, and I know when I was teaching, it just totally blew my students away. They just bought right into it. There was one I've been wanting to do for a while, and I did it this summer on the golf course. And that was dicey because I was having to change, and I didn't have a changing room, and I was just out there hiding behind an open door and trying different outfits. And somebody called me out on how come I didn't change shoes or something on one of them. But yeah, just a little hocus pocus. You can't believe everything you see anymore.
Not on the internet.
Yeah. So I do have fun with creating some.
I get a kick out of them every time I see them.
Oh my gosh! Every time I do it, Kathy's like texts me, "You have too much time in your hands." No, this is just sort of a little cultural, artistic enrichment for enhancing my skills.
So with all of my kids, I not the same thing, but similar. I Photoshop them in some sort of unworldly area, like Liam. I have him walking on the moon as like a 1-year-old holding the finger of an astronaut.
Oh, wow.
And it looks like he's walking with the astronaut on the moon. And then Emmett, I have him inside of a space shuttle, like he's fixing to take off, but it's like a sci-fi space shuttle. It's not like a real space shuttle.
Yeah.
I haven't done one with Finn yet.
Well, I've seen some, there was a story just the other day, a guy over in the Metroplex, and I've seen this before, but there's some photographers that they go in and they reach out to these kids that have cancer, that, and they put them in these, they do the green screen, and then they do these whole superhero.
I've seen these.
Yeah. And that's really kind of neat.
Super cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to do something like that.
Yeah. That's too much Photoshop for me.
Well, and then there's this dad, and I think he's some sort of not VR. he's a video CGI guy, and he takes his son and puts him like he's playing on like a playground, a piece of equipment that looks like a pirate ship.
I've seen those, yeah.
And then he turns it into like looking like a real pirate ship with water and sharks and things. And then one point he had his son like jumping out of a skyscraper, but he was standing on a couch. And
yeah.
It's crazy cool.
Way too much Photoshop for me.
Yeah. Well, it's a different. I don't think Photoshop quite works.
Well,
that way
you're
with
right,
video.
but I mean, doing basically that's almost a generic term of
right,
doctored
up.
But it's great. It's great stuff.
And I love doctoring up images. Some people those authentic people don't like doing it, but I love adding little pieces, and it's a different art form. Yeah. But I've taken a lot of my pictures and I've added different skies and add different things in the picture just to kind of spice it up a little bit. One time I did a green screen and had one of my clients had her jump in the air and flip her hair up, and then I cut her out of the green screen, put her underwater, and made her look like a mermaid.
Oh wow!
And it was all to like show off a shirt that she was wearing.
Yeah.
But it made it look so cool and so different. I enjoyed doing it.
It's scary what those computers can do anymore.
Yeah, I have fun with it. You got to find places, like you said earlier. You got to find places where you can enjoy it.
Doing the shot of me and my triplet or quadruplet brothers is about as crazy as I get when it comes to the hocus pocus stuff on the computer. But like I said,
still fun.
Yeah, it is. But I don't know. I count myself very blessed and enjoying what I do. I actually spent 3 hours this morning over at Chisholm Elementary Career Day.
Oh, yay.
And, they were bringing them in 15-minute intervals, and so try to keep them entertained and engaged. And, of course, I brought the drone in and launched it up. And so, I was just talking about being a photographer and just count myself blessed and just going to keep on clicking until...
Agree with that.
Yeah.
Just keep on. Well, thank you for being on my podcast.
Hey, I'm glad, hadn't been trying to avoid you. Just worked out today, and glad we got a chance to do it.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Right.
Good story. All right, guys, I want to give one more big shout out to Blue Belt Contracting. If you have any needs for them, check them out. They're on Facebook. They can do all kinds of stuff, kind of a jack of all trades. Thank you guys so much for sponsoring this podcast. Also, if you want, go follow me on my Facebook group, Paris, Texas, a podcast. We release a quick clip prior to the person coming out, so you know who's coming up the next week. We also release a little reminder on Mondays that this podcast is coming out. And if you have any questions or want to sponsor this podcast, that's a great place to go. And I guess we will see you next week. Bye, guys.